Painting the furniture in our kitchen is really great because we can give our kitchen a quick and affordable makeover, but this comes with some risks. I've painted 2 different kitchens. The first time I did a terrible job, but the second time I'm really happy with the results. So let's talk exactly about what the steps are, how to clean the doors once they're painted, and what we need to do to make sure our kitchen is perfect. To speak to you with more accuracy, I got in touch with a technician from Duracolor, specifically the one who gave me the paint to paint this door we have here from La Cabana. And they explained to me exactly what the steps are and what mistakes I made the first time I painted in my kitchen. So I'm going to talk to you one by one about the problems, what happened to me, and how you should do it. But also I'm going to do it in the meantime so I can test it later. So let's get started. What happened to the doors in my kitchen? First, they've turned yellow. Oh, this is terrible. They've yellowed. Second, the paint has peeled off in some areas. And third, you can see coffee stains or anything else that spills. It just stays there. It gets absorbed into the paint and there's no way to get them out. So I have those 3 little problems. By the way, I'm super excited to finally be able to show you the cabin here, all finished. I used to make the videos against the wall, just a little piece of wall so it wouldn't show, and now I can finally show it freely. You can see the beautiful final result on the Decorate It Yourself channel here. I'm really happy with how it turned out. But anyway, let's get to it. These are the 3 problems I have with the kitchen doors that I painted in my house. Let's talk about the exact process you need to follow when painting the doors. What paints should you use? Do you need to apply primer or varnish? And what would be, let's say, the whole process from the beginning? Well, the first thing we need to do is remove our doors. Obviously, we unscrew them and take them to an area where we can paint freely. Let's distinguish between doors already painted and those being painted for the first time. First, the ones being painted for the first time. That is, we remove our door and it has its original lacquer, which can be any color. What do we do with this door? First, we'll sand it, but there's no need to overexert yourself while sanding. It's just a superficial layer so that the shine, which prevents the paint from sticking well, is removed completely, and then we can start painting our door. We can sand it with a machine or we can sand it by hand. Honestly, since it's just a quick sanding, we'll do it faster by hand. And there's no need to buy a sander just for this. Once we have it sanded, let's move on to the next step, which is cleaning. This step is super important. They've emphasized to me that it has to be very clean, but not just cleaned anyway. You have to use 2 products. The first one would be the degreaser. You have to clean it very well with degreaser in every corner and everywhere you see. That means the door has to be completely clean. And the second thing would be ammonia. We leave it nice and clean so we can go ahead and apply the primer. That will be the next step, okay? As for the rollers, I've always told you that I've used the Velurex and it's always worked really well for me. But the people from Duracolor sent me this one, which is microfiber, and they told me it gives a better finish and doesn't leave any residue. No lint at all. Although this one has never shed for me, it could possibly shed, so this one in principle is ideal. It also comes in 2 sizes. I'll start with this one, but if there's a corner I can't reach, I'll switch to the smaller one. That way, I'll also tell you a little bit about my experience with a microfiber roller. I placed it on these rocks since I won't use this door later, but if you plan to paint it, consider that. Above all, make sure this is very smooth so the bottom part of the door doesn't get scratched. I just place it to keep it elevated, but you could use anything else that works as support without damaging the bottom of the door. For the primer, we apply 1 coat, and if for any reason it doesn't look perfectly painted, we'll apply a second one. It's almost better to just go ahead and apply a second coat. However, you need to wait 24 hours between coats because the primer must be completely dry before applying the second coat. They strongly advised me to wait a full 24 hours between applying each coat. We would apply the second coat simply to seal any possible stains that may have appeared. You have to wring out the roller very well. We should have covered these pieces here if we were going to use them. That is, to protect them, we would cover them and then proceed to paint. As I mentioned, I won't cover them since I'm not using them. The primer coat should be thin, just like when we apply the paint. We need to spread the paint very well and make the layer as thin as possible for the paint. We'll do exactly the same thing. Now we're going to paint this door and we'll do it with a roller, although preferably And if I can recommend something, it would be better to do it with an electric spray gun. Electric spray guns may seem like they can be very complicated. On the Decora Tu Mismo channel, you have several videos on how to use them and more. They're very simple, nothing complicated about them. However, I recommend practicing somewhere else first and then on your kitchen door. Because if you've never used a spray gun before, even though it's easy, you need to get the hang of it a little bit. And it's true that if we need to apply very thin layers of paint and we don't control it very well, we might end up using more paint than recommended. And then wrinkles might appear afterwards. So the most important thing, if we're going to use a spray gun, is to practice beforehand and then move onto our door. In this case, as I said, I'm using a roller because it's just for a test. I'm not going to install this door anywhere, but also if you want to see how the door will look painted with a roller, I'll show you. I'll take the opportunity and show you here. When we're dealing with painting, we have two options. One would be water-based enamel, which is basically the one we used on the door here in the cabin. After applying the primer, we proceeded to use the water-based enamel. The other option would be multi-adhesive polyurethane paint. Honestly, this paint works really well. We used this paint to paint the countertop in my parents' apartment, and it turned out incredibly well. But it's true that since it's solvent-based, it's much less eco-friendly than water-based paint. So, I could tell you that if the doors are in pretty good shape, you should use water-based enamel paint. And if the door is in pretty bad shape, if you think painting might get complicated for any reason, use the polyurethane one. That depends a little on your choice. The second kitchen we painted was with polyurethane, and honestly, the result was perfect. There are paints that are alkyd or oil-based. And what about this? What happens when you apply this paint? Normally, when they don't get much light, like in my kitchen, which doesn't get a lot of natural light, let's say over time, they start to turn yellow. In this case, of course, the white color ends up turning a bit yellowish, and that's what happened to me. I used an alkyd paint, and over time, since it didn't get natural light, it started to turn a bit yellow. Although the best thing to do when you have a stain in a kitchen that's been painted is to remove it right away. If not, there's always the possibility that the stain will stay there permanently. But it's true that how long it lasts will depend largely on the quality of the paint. I know it's a lot of information all at once. I felt the same way when they told me it's a whole new world. I'm passionate about paints, which is why I love the subject. And I try to explain to you as best as I can what I've been told, also based on my own experience painting kitchen doors and regular doors, but let's get back to what we were talking about, which was the topic of paint. Once we've chosen between water-based or solvent-based, then let's say it would change because we're leaning towards the water-based one. The primer and subsequent steps are necessary because we are using water-based paint. If we were using solvent-based paint, priming wouldn't be required. We could simply paint the door, meaning we would sand it, clean it, apply the paint, and it would be done. But let's talk about the enamel, the water-based one, which is also how I'm doing it in this example I'm showing you. Once we've applied the first coat of paint, we're going to wait 6 hours and then apply the second coat of paint. Once we've applied the second coat of paint, we'll wait 6 hours, then apply 3 more coats. It is true that many times we apply 2 coats and it looks good. It's not because of the coverage, because we won't have any problem with that, it's because of the drying process. This paint dries very quickly, so it's much more advisable to apply 3 coats instead of 2. Most importantly, wait the full 6 hours, just as we waited a full 24 hours with the primer. If we don't do this, it's possible that we'll get wrinkles in the paint or an orange peel texture. We might find that the final result isn't what we expected. Finally, once we've applied 3 coats of our paint, we would move on to the varnish. The varnish isn't essential, meaning we can skip it, since the paint in this case is good and would serve the same purpose. Let's say that with the varnish, the paint wouldn't peel off. But if we want to give our doors an extra touch, we can apply glossy effect varnish. And now regarding cleaning in our house, we've had the problem of using the cleaning product directly, applying it, scrubbing, and the paint comes off. So what products do we use to clean? So it's true that I've often said I use neutral products for cleaning, but since these aren't so strong, they don't remove stains, so I have to use stronger ones and they lift the paint. And this is exactly what happened to me on the kitchen door that we use. So I've been told that what's really important isn't the product we use, but that we dilute that product in water. That we dilute it in water. In other words, we take the water, add the product, and clean our door. But the most important thing isn't this. The most important thing is that we rinse it afterward. In other words, after we've cleaned all the furniture in our kitchen, we take another bucket with water and go over it again with water. So, cleaning all the doors to remove any possible product or leftover residue that might have stayed on the doors. This rinsing part is super important, and that's why most of the time the durability of the paint is less than expected. Honestly, I didn't know this, and I find it really interesting because I usually clean the doors and then just leave it at that. And I've been told that the final rinse of the door is essential so that it ends up looking good and lasts longer. It makes perfect sense, but you see, it's just one of those things you don't think about. Everything I've explained is for a new door, meaning as if we've never painted it before. If we've already painted it before and we're going to paint it again, what we need to do is sand it, clean it, as we've said, with degreaser and ammonia, and then we would go straight to applying the paint. If there's any area where, for whatever reason, the paint has come off and there might be a small dent there, it's important to sand thoroughly. So if, for example, the scratches are 2 centimeters, we should sand 5 centimeters. And then we would apply the paint there. But above all, we sand thoroughly around it so that everything is leveled at the same height. Otherwise, we might end up with some little bumps and then it doesn't look good. And basically, that's the process, the step-by-step and the cleaning. Now that I have the door all painted, with all the steps done and done well, let's stain it and see how it turns out. I've mixed water and coffee here. Oh no, it's spreading all over the place. The first test is to remove it immediately. Let's see how it goes. Okay, it comes off perfectly. If we remove it right away, it's great. Now we're going to leave it on a little longer. It's been over 3 hours. This surface has dried and can be removed by hand. We will clean it to assess the results. It looks good, but there's a slight stain. I'll show you now. Can you see it a little bit? So, now let's try with a cleaning product. Let's try with a little bit of degreaser. Okay, so I put a little bit of bleach on it and then I rinsed it, let's say, and finished removing it with water. That is, we applied the bleach, but then we rinsed it with water so the product wouldn't stay on it. So, it did come off, but I have to say it was quite difficult for me. So, the best thing is that if we get a coffee stain, especially coffee because that's what stains our painted door the most, clean it immediately, waiting no more than 2-3 minutes or it will become very difficult to remove. I was able to get it out too, mostly because it's blue. If it had been white, it would have been much harder for me, so let's keep that in mind. If we paint the doors of our kitchen, it's very important that when cleaning, we do 2 things. First, remove the stain as soon as possible, and second, apply the product. In this case, bleach, glass cleaner, or whatever we need, but afterwards, use water and remove the product. That wraps up today's video. I hope you found it helpful. Honestly, every time I go to paint a piece of furniture, I'm going to watch this video because I think it's important to keep these things in mind. I hope you enjoyed it. See you in upcoming videos. See you soon.